Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard. Year now 1947. That's what we are today. 1947. Boy, what a year. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people constantly asking me my age factor. You know what I'm saying? I don't even do that now. I don't even do birthdays now. You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand completely. Yes.
So guess what? All due respect, we're going to get right into the history. As you know, we're right in the midst of politics. We are in a major election. Sure, we got the national election. You see that every day. But guess what? We're bringing it back here in Oregon, specifically in our living room. Basically, that's Portland metropolitan area, Portland metropolitan Portland, whatever you want to say to it. But the fact of the matter is, we're gonna be doing some things. We're going to be talking about politics. We're going to be talking about the whole election aspect of it. But at the same time, to make sure you understand what the City of Roses was all about, we're going to talk about history. And I thought I'd bring a character on, like myself, competently, that will kind of share that with you. And then throughout the campaign, we're going to talk about what are the issues from a historical perspective, from a guy that's been writing about this history here in the city of Portland for years. Okay, and I think it's going to be very important, not only to the candidates and whatever, but in all due respect to those. We're sitting in a very serious time, and I'll just tell you point blank. You know me, and I will tell you point blank. I've done my research and my homework, and we're in dire need of the type of leadership to get us back to the City of Roses. You know what I'm saying? You got me? So on that particular note, we've got Jim Spears here is with us. Some of you may have recognized the name, but as time goes, you will recognize the name because he basically, if anybody knows the issues and the solution to the issues, is Jim. Okay, and then adding to that, as I started off with the last show, I gave you a little piece on Northeast Portland and the black community, and I basically gave you an opportunity to listen to a young lady by the name of Liz Taylor, who was born and raised here, and she did her piece. And then there was this other young man who was born and raised here, Antonio, and he was a former gang member, young man, and kind of changed his life a little bit, and so and I think he's running for office too. But the bottom line is, they give you a little history of that piece was very important because he talked a little bit about the gangs and this, that, and the other, which is important, and that's still a serious issue here, and we need solutions along that line and whatever. So anyway, so now as a continuation of that, the second half hour of the show, and you're going to, by the way, before I get there, I'm going pretty fast right now because we got a lot of things to do, is that Jim's going to be here with us for about 30 minutes to start with, and we're going to talk about some of his history, and then we're going to, at the end of the show, we're going to basically have him talk a little bit more about public safety, just as an intro, and then as time goes, we're going to do more as we for the future, because we're going to get him on. He's going to be here throughout the campaign across the board. Okay, and then the second half hour we're going to have Levi Irvin, who's running for district number 2. But guess what? He's the only law enforcement officer running for office here within the new form of government, City of Portland. And public safety is is a top issue. Very major. So consequently, I'm going to be interviewing him. He's running for office, and as district number 4. But in all due respect, he's running for the entire city of Portland because he's going to be he's the guy that understands what public safety is all about, and that's one of our top issues. And most of the people who are running for office don't have that background. So I'm saying with the folks who are running for office, look at the show, understand what's going down, and for those voters, seniors and the like, make sure we get this guy. We got to get him on city council. He'll be the only representative to continue to educate when they do get together, if you will. And he's going to be a busy guy. He happens to be a motorbike, not a motorcycle, but he's on a bicycle downtown Portland. That's a very interesting job aspect of it. So anyway, he's going to be on, and we're going to have him on an ongoing basis to a certain degree. And we want you to share these shows, by the way. Please share the shows with the rest of your folks. Okay, got me? Okay, with that, Jim, Let's begin, sir. Let's talk about the history. Let's talk about who was Jim to begin with. Let's talk about where you went to school, all that kind of good stuff.
Well, it's going to be pretty mundane. It's going to be pretty boring. But born and raised in North Portland. Went to Chief Joseph Grade School, Roosevelt High School. After high school, I joined the Marine Corps and
Simplify, Jim.
Simplify, yep. And after that, I returned after 3 years and went to Portland State for a period of time. Got a bachelor and master's degree from there. Taught school for a period of time at Portland Community and a little bit at Chemeketa Community. And I've lived in San Diego for 12, 13 years. Had a couple businesses there. And then I've moved back here and have tried to do some writing, some historical observations about the community, and it's important to recognize that the observations are people take issue with them. They are my opinion, my observations exclusively. And
give an example now at this point in time, maybe somewhat, just one. I know you got many.
I have a number of them. I'm probably the issue that everyone is on their tongue because we can't get away from it. It's homelessness. And I'm the first to admit I'm probably the most politically incorrect person that many people have stumbled upon, but I like to think I'm pragmatic. I like to think what I see is accurate. And what I'm paraphrasing this with is I think when we look at homelessness and drug abuse and what have you, a couple of things come to mind. One is that the consuming public, in large part, this again is my opinion, usually identifies it as a problem. There's the word we use. But however, I'm believing that many elected officials at the city and the county and elsewhere do not share that vision. I think they see it as a business opportunity, and it's a massive one because there's more people involved with this at so many levels that it just staggers the imagination, and the results speak for themselves. They get worse. And what we're told across the board, I believe, is that what we need to do in order to understand the condition surrounding this is we need to stop believing our eyes and ears. Stop believing what you see and hear and believe what we tell you as a result. That we've got all these various programs for homelessness and drug abuse and what have you, or whether it's the cost of living or what have you. But when I look around me, I'm going, well, what I'm being told is taking place is not being supported by what my eyes produce and what my ears let me hear. So there's a dichotomy here that I think that many elected officials, and oftentimes they're called, or they give themselves the moniker, the name of progressive, which, again, being just a passing student of the English language, I mean, Shakespeare's safe, don't get me wrong, but I just think the bastardization of the English language is part of the problem, because I scratch my head and go, well, I think the root word for progressive is progress, isn't it? So right. I'm seeing what these progressives advocate for. It looks to me like everything you promote is regressive in nature.
Yes.
So
yes.
Is it so the English language is being reduced to just non-functional? And there's words like crisis, or emergency, or expert, or professor, or what have you. And I'm going, it almost invalidates who you are, because all you have to do is open your eyes and listen to your ears, and it invalidates what you're telling me, Mr. Progressive. So I just think that we need to hitch our cart to a horse that is realistic enough to see through their eyes and listen to their ears and say, let's whatever we're replicating, wherever we're advocating, typically, is like, hey, here's a great idea. It hasn't worked for 40 or 50 years, but let's double down and do it again, and let's make it where it costs 2 or 3 times as much money, and then let's pat ourselves on the back and say, well, this is a progressive result. And I'm going, well, it isn't working, and so I'm just and again, it's just my opinion, but so many elected officials over the last number of decades or longer at the city and the county, I think you could euphemistically put them all in a sack and shake it and turn it upside down and pour it out, and you'd have the same rhetoric. You'd have the same type of vision, if you will, for the future. And I'm going, well, I'm not a smart man and I'm not an elected official, but I've seen this community. I've seen what's going on. Everybody does. So stop telling me about how it's improving and how these programs work. They work if you're on the receiving end of receiving funding, but if it is addressing the problem, then I see it inversely proportional to what you're telling me. And I just think that and it's at the point now where people running for office are oftentimes fearful of identifying what they see and hear, because if you do that, they're going, well, you're not compassionate, or you're not sympathetic, or you're not Christian, or you're not helpful. You're just making noise, and what we need to do is replicate what we've done all along. And I'm going, well, it hasn't worked. So but if you're an elected official, either current or running for office or what have you, if you say, let's put on the brakes and go, hey, let's stop with this. This hasn't worked. It has not worked. Show me an example of it working. Then you're vilified as some sort of Stalin type personality that is, again, not sympathetic. And so I'm going, what do we do? Do we just continue to do what we've been doing for the 40, 50, 60 years and say, well, it hasn't worked so far, but let's throw some more money at it and see how it works out? And I just think that I don't know if the horse is totally out of the barn, in the sense that I don't know how many people we can attract for candidates or office, that because if they were to say, and I'm not saying anyone should believe me, this is my opinion, but if they were to embrace even a fraction of what I'm saying, they'd be vilified in public. They'd be called names, and there'd be, the popular, of course. Even you can't even complete a sentence without having the name Hitler thrown in. The guy's never been so popular as he is today. But so I just I think that we are avoiding issues that are right in front of our face, and we do so in the name of progressive behavior. I'm a progressive Democrat, or I'm a progressive this or that, and I'm going, well, but those are simply words, and they don't match results. And in a nutshell, I probably talk too much, but
no, that's just fine.
Homelessness is simply one issue, and it's whether it's drug abuse or the homelessness that go hand in glove. I think we have to recognize, and this is again just my observation, and I think it's fairly accurate, but what the consuming public identifies as a problem, many of the people in civil service on the public dole identify it as a great business opportunity, because it's growing, and it's continued to grow, and the larger the problem gets, the more business opportunity that presents. Because if you're a social worker and you've got a client base of, pick a number, 15, 18 people, and they're going, well, I can't handle any more people, but we've got 30 more people that need to come in. Well, you need to hire 2 more people, and so one hand washes the other, and you just keep going back to the taxpayer and say, we're fighting the good fight. We're on the victory trail. All we need is more money, and that seems to be the caveat across the board, whether it's homelessness or whether it's drug abuse or whether it's failing school systems or what happens. It's like it's not a money issue necessarily. It's somebody and some people who can identify that what we've done, what we've embraced as helpful and accurate, simply isn't working.
Jim, tell me this then, on that particular note. Do you feel that the commercial media that we have today, I mean, it is part and parcel of every society, do you think that they've identified, they basically are relied upon to the populace of identifying what the issues are? And they gave the 4 different issues, one of which was homeless, right? And they talked about this. But do you think that the media, our present media, defined it up front enough to educate those who might be interested in running for office and i.e. develop a platform accordingly? What do you think about it?
No, I think our media across the board, and no matter what form it comes in, they have developed and embrace, for lack of a better term, a herd mentality, because you can change a channel, and you might get a slightly different verbiage in a sentence on whatever subject it is, but it's going to be replicated almost identical. And so there's not a media out there that again is going to say, hey, this is fascinating. What you're saying is more money, more this, more that, but change a channel, and that next channel going, this is a crock of nonsense. It hasn't worked before. But no, they're all herd creatures in large part, and I'm fond of the phrase. It's like something like running fast in a herd when you're dumb as a rock is a perfect adaptation for survival, because you just blend in with everybody else, and everybody's singing the same tune. You're going, well, I'm not going to stand out and rock the boat. After all, I get paid whatever media source it is, and I want to keep my job. So I'm not going to be the one to step out and say these people are saying what they're saying because they've been handed a script, and it's the same script that the next group and the next group and the next group goes. And at the end of the day, there's little or no variety. I mean, there's certainly nobody that steps out and says, what you're advocating for is something that has been going on for decades, and it hasn't worked. It's gotten worse. Open your eyes. Stop believing what you're told. Listen, your eyes and ears have a purpose here, and understand. If you do that, then you're going to be the victim of vitriol incoming. People are going to be after you. As again, the number of titles that'll be assigned to you are going to be staggering. Again, Hitler and Stalin come to mind, and Mao Zedong, and Charlie Manson. Who knows? But it's a tough posture to assume when virtually all your peers read from the same script.
So now we've got this new form of government. Do you think this will better the end of the day piece in terms of solutions to this issue of homelessness, or not?
Based upon if the past is a precursor to the future, I'd say no. I'd like to, and it's premature to say anything because they're still trying to figure out what it's really going to look like. So it is premature, but I think it's just shoveling the bureaucratic deck, because it depends on what the players see within this new form of government and what they're willing to advocate for. But again, if they're the traditional herd creatures that run fast in that herd while being dumb as a rock, then I don't expect any progress. And so hope springs eternal. But clearly what we've been doing previously has no application. Not working.
So what about that leadership, if you will? Is it more conservative now? Have they reinforced their conservativeness in terms of running this new form of government, and that's going to either benefit them more or benefit the public?
Well, I have no idea, and I don't think the people who are proposing this have a. I mean, on paper, I understand what it looks like. In practice, I think it's premature to say what we can expect across the political spectrum. It's going to depend on people, again, being willing to step out and admit that what has worked previously is not only not working, but it's exponentially losing ground. And again, there's people who have a vested interest in seeing this failure continue, because there's a whole bunch of organizations and people who are getting paid to see this replicate itself. And there's not a one of them that's going to come out and say to the next one, that hey, what you're saying is a fallacy, and it's been the verbiage has been continued for decades, and it doesn't work. But again, it's hard to get somebody, no matter in what capacity, media-wise, it's hard to get somebody to tell the truth when you're being paid to tell the opposite. You want to feed the family. You're going, well, I'm one voice. What difference can I make? So I'm not going to rock the boat, and I'll just pretend that this is a really good idea, and I'll collect my paycheck, and pretty soon I'll be out of office anyway. I'll be retired, so who cares?
As you talked about the homeless aspect of it, I'd like to see if we can just kind of slip in this piece about law enforcement, because when those individuals who are listed as law enforcement officers, meaning that these are the policies that they're enforced, that are basically created and handed down by those who are elected, right? You got me?
Yes.
And maybe talk from a historical standpoint of how these officers reacted to that in the past, as opposed to how they're being placed to react to it today.
Well, it's very important to make it very clear that I've never been a police officer, never been involved with law enforcement at any level. My father was a Portland police officer, which doesn't qualify me for anything. But I do think that, based upon the relationship of, I'm speaking here locally, although you can certainly look across the 48 states, lower states here at least, and see a pattern. But our police, it's a weird deal, because the cops on the street, again, they have eyes and ears. They see and hear what's going on. They know what's going on, and oftentimes they know what's required to remedy the situation. But you go to bureaucrats who pull the strings, then there's a disconnect. And so I feel sorry for our police officers, because so many times they're vilified because they're a convenient scapegoat. And not only are there elected officials, whoever's in charge of the Portland Police Bureau in this case, or the county, oftentimes they have no connection except perhaps an academic connection. They took a police class or something like that. I'm not saying it's universal. Sometimes it's different, but I think the connection is lost because of what goes on in the street. Doesn't match what goes on in the rhetoric of the boardroom. And again, you've got people who are making policy that is great if you're taking Urban Studies 101 at Portland State University, but if you go out on the street like a police officer, first thing that happens is you get your forehead caved in by a bat and go home. Well, that's a little different than what I learned last semester in school, and so it's rhetorically the case. So I just think the disconnect is is a significant portion of what's degraded, in this case, the Portland Police Bureau. Honorable people, wonderful people who go out and do remarkable things every day, and who, by the way, which is nothing that the bureaucrats want to discuss, but many times what a police officer sees on a given day or week is something that the public can't even comprehend, and so there's no relationship there, and it accounts for a morale problem and a retention problem in the police department, and we got people who complained maybe properly about the lack of time in the 911 system, or you have a problem and the police aren't right there. Well, pick a number. How many police officers in Portland are? How deficient are we? How many are supposed to be out there, as opposed to how many uniformed police are on the beat or on the street at any given time? And they have to look over their shoulder and go, not only do I have to try and do my job, but I have to insulate myself, because there's legions of people out there whose job is to viify me, to crucify me. If I say the wrong thing, touch the wrong thing, do anything, I'm going to get sued. And maybe the police bureau will back me up. More than likely, I'll have to hire a private attorney. It's not worth it. So I'll either do a lateral transfer, go to another department that is more forgiving and appreciative of the police, or in some cases, in any case with the police officers that are here in Portland, they have to be dedicated beyond the imagination, because what they're doing and what they're seeing, again, what they see and hear does not match what we see and hear on the evening news. It's censored, and it's mollified, and it's altered in order to get the right character of what's going on out there. And oftentimes the police officers are, whether by accident or design, they're sacrificed in order to create a story that is what we want to hear. And you won't go to another station and go, hey, this is a lot of nonsense. This isn't the way it happened. This is it. You hear just feloniously stupid things frequently. It's like if there's a police officer shooting involved, it's like, well, you've got these armchair quarterbacks are going, well, it was, how come the police officer didn't recognize it as a replica gun or a pellet gun? Oh no, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. You've got less than a second to make a life-altering decision. But in the press, oftentimes it's like, well, let's get the cop and let's get a variety of inquiries and figure out how we can change this around to where it's the police officer's fault. He had poor training, or he had this or that, or he was just reckless. And so I just think that it's a tough position to be in, because the public is in large part counseled along the way, through whether you go on the campus of Portland State University and just do a random inquiry and ask any student there, what do you think of police? And they'll tell you, and they'll go, why do you think that? Well, because my professor, and he's an expert, by the way, but he's told me this, and we've learned it, and it's in law enforcement class, and these are evil, wicked, these are aspiring. I think they all want to wear an SS uniform and become part of the Waffen. But so they're groomed.
Early on.
The public is groomed through our flawed educational system to be anti-police to begin with, and then you couple that with the fact that they haven't got a clue what in the world what a cop sees, whether it's family abuse, animal abuse, you name it. They're things that people wouldn't even begin to fathom if they had to be walking a cop's shoes. But why should they when they can go to Urban Studies 101 and then they become the expert? And pretty soon they run for office, and pretty soon they work for newspapers and media groups. And I don't know if you've ever had the misfortune of sitting in I don't know which and it's not just public higher education. It's not just colleges, but it's down to different levels. At school I went to, Roosevelt High School, and if you take a class in journalism there, I mean, you are taught the evils of police and capitalism and how what to expect, and if you go into the real world of journalism, media activity, whatever it is, you better sing that tune. I mean, you better run in that herd, or chances of you getting a job are like flying to the moon, because you've got to say and think and do exactly as we tell you. Here's the script. If you violate, pardon me, son, but it'll take 6 weeks for your ass to catch up with your head when you're done bouncing, because you are not going to work. And so I think that's a simplification, and there's more to it. But the police officers have got to be there. They're like tightrope walkers in a circus. That's a real strict and odd balancing act, and it oftentimes it prevents them from doing what they know they should do if they want to encounter somebody who, if you will, needs a refresher course of sorts.
Well, maybe we might be able to bridge some of that gap, because it just so happened that there's at least one Portland policeman that's going to be running for office here under this new form of government. The person might be located in one particular district. I think District Number 4. The gentleman's name was Eli Irvin and
Arnold.
Yeah, Arnold. I'm sorry, Eli Arnold. It almost sounds like the Broussard name. They called me Buzzard in the Marine Corps because I was such a ruthless. Anyway, we
got him right, Eli.
Yeah, Eli. Yeah, Eli is he's running for office. He's a bike cop. Bike cop, and so he's like downtown Portland. Because a lot of the media stuff comes from downtown Portland, because the business folks want to. Hey, that's the living room, right? Got me? But the bottom line is unique. I mean. But bridging that gap, it would be neat. He's going to have quite a job, a task, if you will, sitting on a council when 12 people get together, and the issue comes up. He'll be the only one person that's going to be there trying to talk to the whole issue of defining the policies, if you will, and what can they do to change it to make things more effective, right?
I think so. I mean, I can't conjecture, speculate on what Eli's purpose is or reaction would be in a setting like that, but I can hazard a guess. And again, the police department is like any bureaucracy. You got to thread the needle, and you got to toe the line, and oftentimes being accurate or telling the truth runs contrary to that. So again, you've got to be the tightrope walker, and it's there's that old adage from somewhere that says that bureaucracies, no matter what they are, they either need to grow or die, and they become less efficient with age. The bigger they get, the less this is like trying to embrace the fog. You can get a handle on it, you can see it, but go get the fog. It disappears, then it reappears over there, and pretty soon you're chasing after it, and you're just exhausted chasing something that you can't catch. And bureaucracies and the police department, which is a bureaucracy, and they have people they have to answer to, and sadly enough, most of who they have to answer to are byproducts of Portland State University Urban Studies program.
Elected officials.
Or gendered studies program. Fascinating.
But anyway, that's a good point, because in all due respect, I mean, I look at I've been looking at this thing as I was doing my research aspect of when you start thinking about all of those 4 districts. If there's anybody that's been in the boot camp, downtown Portland. And District Number 4 is downtown Portland to a certain degree, and he's in that piece. This particular officer is in there, And if I had my withers, I'd say that at least there would be a police officer or a person that's been out there in each of the districts. They should at least have one representative in at least one of those three slots. Should have one policeman in each one of those. You got me? But now, because he's downtown, he's right there where the action is, and so hopefully he'll be able to be able to communicate, if you will, with the rest of the districts.
You'd hope so. And
it's a tough job.
It's you bring up where he may or may not be working, where his existing behavior, where his patrol district is, and it's downtown Portland. And to bring back briefly full circle, what I was saying is like, we have to believe what we see and hear. I hear repeatedly from, as we all do, you can't hardly miss a channel, where some personality from an elected of some of the bowels of the county or the city is telling us, downtown Portland is being revitalized. We're pouring money into it. The businesses are coming back. People are happy. It is really, really, you just have to get down there. And I'm going, have you been down there? Well, no, that's what the script says right here.
I read the Oregonian.
Yeah, it's like, well, what about the business owners that have their businesses? How about the people whose cars get stolen out? How about the people who are terrified? Who said, you say, I'm going to go down there at night? Are you nuts? Are you crazy? Suicide's not one of my, not high on my list of priorities. Yes. But again, it's I would think the downtown section of Portland and what's become of it is a great example of contrasting what we're told as opposed to what probably a police officer sees.
Exactly.
But citizens aren't they won't see it because they won't go down there.
Exactly.
They're terrified.
Exactly. Well, what we're going to do here now, I think, is, hey, Steve, you're there out there in the control room. This is community television, and I'm liking this conversation. We got like I said, we got about 20 minutes. I was going to go on and interview this only officer, and then we're going to be basically, here we are now. We're elected officials now, and we need someone to communicate, right? Well, so, kids, I'm going to see if Steve will allow us to pull another chair in here while you're here and I'm here, and we'll let Eli sort of give us a feel of the boot camp.
Get on those yellow footprints.
That's right. So we're gonna change it a bit. We're just gonna go on and bring him in and with us here, and this way he can kind of communicate. And if we want to question him, we can always ask him a question. But he's gonna still be here, by the way. It's not because we're gonna be coming back and talking to this issue. I'm gonna see if Steve will come in and see whether or not we might be able to add a chair in what we're doing. And at this point in time, can we do that, Steve?
Move the sign and he can put his chair there.
Okay, sounds good. All right, good.
So I'm just staying in place.
You just
here?
just stay right there. There you go. You stay right where you are. There you go. Hi, Eli. How's it going? Sorry about that. Look like you're working already. See, we need you.
You're going to be vilified. I mean,
That's right. That's right.
You should wear that police envoy, that Che Guevara hat with a star going. I told you that's what happens.
He's the guy. See, I'm working on that. I'm working on that. But anyway, he's former military. I'll just do a brief piece. I want you to only just share with them real quick, like who you are, kind of a deal, and how you got on the force, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna jump right into this situation with Jim and I. They cool?
You're going to correct me. Tell me where I screwed up.
All right. So Eli Arnold, run for City Council in District 4.
Okay.
I was in the Army. Spent a while in the Army. Did a couple trips to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Did military intel. Flew helicopters, and decided to become a Portland cop after that.
Yeah. Okay.
And got 4 kids. Live in Selwood, and after being a cop for a few years in Portland, working at homeless camps every day.
Wow.
I was like, I feel like we should do something about this. And the other things I was seeing on the ground. And I was constantly surprised at how the discussion I heard from elected officials just did not match the reality of what I was seeing. And the public was frustrated. The public wanted something done. But until we get like a public diagnosis that matches the ailment, we're not going to be able to really treat it effectively. So that's why I decided to run for City Council.
And that's why we need at least one. We need 4 you guys. One in each district aspect. But we're going to have one hopefully if everything works out right.
I think one would be very useful because we've spent a lot of money and a lot of words trying to address these problems to no effect. And I think a big part of that is that they're writing legislation, writing policy from a remove. They've seen it from the car window. But when you actually work with something up close, you can kind of see the nuance, and it might change your approach a little bit.
Well, a sampling. I think you texted me something. You were on the. I asked you a couple of questions. Again, taking advantage of the opportunity to get you involved in the process, because you're the only person around that I could have called. And you made mention about the fact that you busted a little entity of about $12,000 worth of drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you an example.
I can't talk cases,
you can't talk about
but I can
that.
tell you I've spent the last couple years primarily arresting fentanyl dealers.
Fentanyl dealers? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. How much is on the street?
Well, it's a lot harder to find large quantities downtown right now than it was last year. I'd say last summer was kind of the peak, at least for downtown. You could literally find people walking around with a backpack full of fentanyl pills.
Wow.
On any given day, and thankfully, that's not as true now as it was then, but it's still a major problem.
Okay, talk a little bit about that. When did this start from your perspective? When did you see this thing?
Downtown's always had sort of an open drug problem, but after Measure 110, so after decriminalization, penalties for blatant drug use went away, right? And it took a little while for, I think, the users and everybody to sort of catch up to the logic of that. But that created incentive for users to use openly and in large groups, particularly people who are living on the streets. Because if you clump up with 40 people and just start using openly, well, street dealers will have a really easy time finding their customers. And so we would get these giant congregations of users, and dealers would just circulate downtown servicing the groups. And so we kind of had to adapt and figure out how do you target when you can't do anything about the drug use. I guess the only thing you can really target is the dealer, but even seeing drugs isn't enough then. So how do you do it? So we had to do some work coming up with some strategies for that.
Okay.
Thankfully, had some good success with it. But
so it's kind of working, so to speak.
We had some success there. I'm glad for recriminalization.
Yeah.
We need more tools to do something. There need to be consequences for smoking meth by the playground.
Okay.
And that became a not unusual thing. Because there were no consequences. And we kind of incentivize or disincentivize behaviors with our policies. So working. We all need to be working on disincentivizing that blatant public use right now.
Join in. You wanna?
Well, there's nothing I can take issue with, except again, you're talking to a person who witnesses it in real time, on the street, as opposed to academically. We got this program or this. You mentioned the criminalization type of thing. I'm harking back, and nobody's going to listen to me, I suppose.
Well, they are now.
But the stories and what have you, the idea was being proposed, and it was like, this is the most feloniously stupid thing I could ever imagine. Now, what did you think was going to happen? I mean, what in the world? But again, with the herd mentality that took place at the time, you found very few dissenting voices. You found a whole lot of liberal progressives, if you will, who were going, oh, here's the answer, where we have to be compassionate and do this way, and this will really be helpful. Within you could set your clock by it. Within weeks or months, the number of overdoses are tripled, for heaven, or whatever it happened to be, and they're issuing, people just walking by, here, take this Narcan thing in case you see somebody passed out on the side of the street. See if you can get them back. And I'm going, well, how in the world, who, and by the way, whoever is in there's a large group was responsible for the idea for one and the implementation for the other is like, who's held responsible for this thing?
Yeah.
Is there one person who lost their job? Is there one person who should be held accountable, or do they just go, oh, we made a mistake, oh, we'll do better next time? Oh, and by the way, give me some more money.
Yeah.
Give me
Yeah.
that. That'll solve the problem.
I think you kind of touched on this both with homelessness earlier and with drugs now. The reality on the ground not matching the conversation, and I think here people who aren't really familiar with this stuff wrote the policy. It wasn't people who are working with addicts every day, and so it was really easy. They used their own experience. They said, well, my experience, I knew people who tried cocaine in college. I don't want them to go to prison because they tried a drug one time. But they had no ability to imagine what this might mean for somebody who is a heroin addict who's already sleeping on the street. And so they completely missed that part of the equation.
But what about the policymakers? I'm just saying, we're talking about this stuff. You're on the street, but they're policymakers, and normally, what it amounts to, they basically send this to their employee, say, by the way, enforce this. These are things we want you to, i.e., oversee or whatever, and react to it, and whatever, go to jail, all that kind of good stuff. Aspect of it. So what we missed there? I mean, how do you get the orders? You're in the military.
How do you get the existing ones?
Yeah.
I mean, Measure 110 was an order, right?
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
do anything about people using drugs on the sidewalk anymore.
Jesus Christ.
And there were consequences for that. And and it another interesting thing about 110, just as an example, is how ideologically driven it was. They could have said, we're interested in decriminalizing drugs. So let's take the drug that currently causes the least harm, that's illegal. We'll stand up treatment. We'll try, we'll run an experiment. We'll decriminalize the one, and we'll see how it goes in 2 years. And if it's, and if we should expand it. But they didn't do that. They said, throw it all in all at once.
Jesus.
Before we stand up treatment, before anything, go straight to meth and fentanyl and heroin. And I think we all saw why that's a bad idea, right? We could be more measured than that.
Well, it's just inconceivable that you have to be a dyed-in-the-wool, card-carrying academic expert to come to the conclusion, going, here's a great idea. This is our problem so far, and let's just make it legal. That should work well. I'm going, what in the world? It's inconceivable, excepting to say, again, I think that much of what we're seeing is a byproduct of years, if not decades, of educational corruption and indoctrination, starting in grade schools, about what's right and wrong with police, and what's about respect for the laws, and drug behavior and things of that nature. And as long as the largest section of people with the most influence media-wise are working against you, it's very difficult, and unless, like Eli says, unless you go and walk downtown for a day, or if you really want to show me how knowledgeable you are and how tough and how insightful you are, why don't you take you and your kids downtown tonight? Spend a weekend down there, see how it works out for you. What are you, crazy? No, go and take my kids. It's a death sentence. And again, it's we're told one thing. We're told that the core downtown is revitalizing itself. It's doing when it's doing inversely proportional, and going, well, why not send a film team down there, somebody down there, and actually go along with a police officer for a week and see how it works out. And then, but you're not allowed to, if you don't get the story that is intended by the producer, then it's not salvageable. We don't want it. I was telling Bruce some time ago, years ago, I got a job. I was requested by a local paper. I won't name the name, but do concluding articles. They had teams, if you will. How many do you need, for heaven's sakes, from the paper and from Portland State and from other self-help groups, of going to homeless camps and shelters and to define the root causes of homelessness. Root causes. And so they did this for about 3 weeks, something like that. And they wanted me to do a 3-part article on it. Well, they came back and said, well, here's our findings. One, the root cause in large parts, not 100%, but large part, is rampant drug abuse. Well, the media sources said, well, you don't want to, no, that's not the narrative. Can't we talk about lack of education or broken homes? And we can do all of that, but let's not focus too much on drug abuse, because that's not what we want to come up with. It's not the pre-planned conclusion that we'd like. And then the next, the people who did the surveys, and they overlap. There was like a dozen different ones overlapping another. Of course, they're all getting paid. That's part of the scam. It's like, can't get enough people on this on this boat. But and so the root causes for homelessness. And so they did interviews, and they came to me, and the interviews were they're talking to homeless people, and in excess of 80%, and that number was watered down when they were talking to them and saying, hey, we can get you off the street, we can get you help, we can get you a shower and get you treatment and this and that. And their response was almost routinely, well, will there be rules in this place? Will there be curfews? Can I not shoot up heroin? I mean, can I not drink cheap wine? And they go, I'm not going there. They've got this pesky document called the Constitution, and you can't force me. You can't put a gun to my head and say, you're going to go. I'm not. Why would I go there when I can stay right here? And as Eli referenced, I think correctly, is that a number of these people on the street that end up in that situation, if for me, it's going, I don't see why these people, there's services that are available. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But listen, if all your friends are in the same boat, you're all in a group, everybody is, shooting up heroin or snorting crank or whatever they're doing, and, the city has instructed the police, not to harass you, don't arrest you, and we'll give you a tent, we'll give you a tarp. If you need food, go to the churches, go to the other places. If you overdose, we'll come and fix you up. The 85% of the calls that the fire department takes now are for drug overdoses. I don't know if they even know how to fight fires anymore, but maybe no need. I don't know. But so I would just think if it becomes a way of life, and you're going, it's not that bad, because Portland is surrounding Multnomah County and Clackamas and Washington to a lesser degree, but we've got a well-established, if you will, national reputation as being one of the preeminent great locations to come if you want to be a drug abuser and a homeless bum, because there's nobody that's going to stop you on the street, and this is a great place to be. And so I just think if you're 3 or 4 months into this, I don't know, but I would think it just becomes routine. Everybody else next to you is doing the same thing, and nobody's getting in trouble. Oh yeah, we overdose once in a while, but Eli will come and straighten us out, put this Narcan, and we'll be back. I know I'm not an expert, I'm not a police officer, not a fireman or anything like that, but I talk to people and have written about current day and retired firemen who say we get calls 2 or 3 times a month. When we get the call, we know the address, we know the person by name. We just took him down to the emergency and got him, for $10, $15, $20,000, bringing the EMT truck and the hook and ladder and everything else, all the personnel, thousands and thousands of dollars. And next week we said, we have to go get Larry or Mo or Curly, whatever. It's him again. They're going, well, we know what we're doing, but if you if you point that out, it's like, well, you're just insensitive. You're not. You can't possibly be a Christian, and maybe you live out of the Old Testament, Leviticus or something. You let them die on the street. But if not, I just think that it would be tough to change a person's behavior if this has went on for months or years. Everybody is doing the same thing. Your friends, on a first name basis, as Eli said, you're as a group down there, if you will, a herd, going, this isn't so bad. I mean, look at
training right there.
Just step outside today.
They need an external force to help them by prompting a change in behavior. And it's a misguided view of compassion. This don't do anything. If it was your kid or your family member, you would never say the nice thing to do is, I'm going to keep using fennel on the sidewalk down there. You would go down there and you'd be like, no, we're going to do something. But for some reason, we got into our heads as a community that just doing nothing and letting people, there's very tragic cases. There's a woman named Sabrina who lives by Cooch Park downtown. She's been down there for years. She'd be out there naked on the street screaming, school's in session, they got the windows open during COVID, and she's like disrupting all the classes. She needs to be in long-term commitment for her sake, and for the sake of all these other people here. But we have just been unwilling to accept that sometimes progress requires discomfort and rules and standards.
And again, if it's based upon my experience with, and I'm not a police officer, can't say, I don't have any. Experience one-on-one as far as that goes, except once in a while you can't go into a Fred Meyer parking lot or you get hit up 3 times before you can get through the doors. But never seen so many people run out of gas in one location. You don't get that out. I think they're up to something. But regardless, it's like if again there has to be an incentive, but based upon what I saw, and they wanted me to write about it, and I said, you want me to write the truth, is here's what we saw, is that these people aren't going to go into these treatment centers. They're not going to go. And why, by the way, why are we spending tens of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money to make these cute little tiny homes? Or we're going to renovate a vacant motel or hotel, and they're doing downtown, Old Town, which is, I guess, I don't know if it's referred to as Chinatown anymore or not, Old Town, but it's like, why are we spending all this money to send people places they told us we're not going to go?
Yeah. Do me a favor. Let's say this is chapter 1, and we're going to continue this conversation with chapter 2. We got about 2 minutes here left, and I'd like to say that, maybe even suggest, if possible, Jim, if we can get this on paper too, if you will get this to the media, to the commercial media, if we can maybe do a piece, if you could do a piece on the piece that we just did in the written format, and then goes to the written media piece, and we'll get this to the visual piece aspect of it, and can hear this conversation. And so I'm not trying to be kind of a personal thing, right, because I just like this guy. He's in the business. That's what he does. He's the law enforcement person, and there's no one else that's going to. And we're looking at this new form of government. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be worse. So, but anyway, so the bottom line is that maybe we might consider. Maybe we'll consider maybe putting something in that written format.
And we can do that. It's just
we got work to do.
A frustrating narrative because of the. Again, it strikes me that. And I'm simplifying things, but what we're missing is so conspicuously obvious. It's like you've got to stop believing what you're told. You have eyes and ears for a purpose, and open them for heaven's sakes, and that will remedy much of this. But we're my experience. You want me to write this article, but you don't want me to write what we found out.
That's what we're going to do. We're here at the end. We got about 5 seconds left. But anyway, thank you guys. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to bring you back to the table. We'll continue where we are, and we'll educate those decision makers, right? Okay, folks, take care. See you next week. Have a good one. This was good.